Name is Force, aptly called when one considers the influence he's had on funny cars for over a decade. And just 2 weeks ago, on one of the few racetracks upon which he had never won, he thrilled the Route 66 Raceway fans by shattering Bob Glidden's record of 85 national event wins. John had applied his force one more time. This is Gary Scelzi. His Route 66 experience could best be defined as one bumpy road. Throughout the entire weekend, he was confronted with challenge after challenge. Any lesser combination of driver and team might have packed up and left, instead of finally winning as they did, posting their 4th victory of the season, his 3rd consecutive title. This is Jake Coughlin. He has dominated this season in Pro Stock, winning 6 of the first 9 completed NHRA national events. Unlike Force and Scelzi, Coughlin did not win at the Prestone Nationals. Instead, he took top honors at the exclusive invitational competition known as the Holly Pro Stock Dominator Duel. For Coughlin, the hits just keep coming. These are the 3 men everyone else is chasing. These are the men who are setting the standards in the first year of the 21st century. ESPN2 presents the National Hot Rod Association. Coverage of the Winston Championship and the year 2000 $45 million tour. A 300-mile-an-hour trip around the United States with this, the 11th of 24 national events. The 36th annual Pontiac Excitement Nationals from National Trail Raceway just outside of Columbus, Ohio. We are under threatening skies here at National Trail. In fact, we had some rain this morning, but we're trying to get down to action. There's lots of stories out here in the pits and a huge crowd as well. One of the big stories this weekend is that John Force is trying to win 5 funny car titles in a row, 5 event titles. There are 4 other racers that have accomplished that. Don Prudhomme, Cruz Pedregon, himself once, John, and Bob Glidden in Pro Stock. Over in Top Fuel, Gary Scelzi is trying to win his 4th consecutive race in a row. Only 2 other racers have accomplished that, Corey McLenithan and Scott Coletta. Right now, for more on what's going on in Top Fuel Eliminator, let's join Bill Stevens.
Thanks a lot, Mac. Let's take a quick look at the top 10 in Top Fuel. And way up top, Gary Scelzi and Larry Dixon and Tony Schumacher. Just a little more than 3 rounds of racing separating those guys. And Kenny Bernstein and Joe Amato lurking in the shadows with still half a season to go. But this may be the car everybody's watching this weekend. Bob Vandergriff Jr. qualified number 2, only 1/1000th of a second behind Gary Scelzi. Heck of a pass, Bob.
Yeah, it was a great run by our team. You know, we'd already been qualified, so Johnny West, my crew chief, said, let's go up there and have a little fun this time. And, you know, we might be a little underfunded and a little undermanned right now, but every time that car goes to the start line, it's perfect, and it's capable of doing that.
Nice Father's Day gift for your dad here, and I guess a bigger one would be to win the race this weekend.
Yeah, it'd be great for my dad, and me being a new dad, you know, I mean, what a weekend this could be.
Well, remember, he's gone to the final round the last 2 years here in Columbus, but came up short. You know, he'd like to rewrite that ending this time around. Now with one of the top stories in funny car, let's go to Shelley Anderson.
Well, Bill, this season, the funny car champions probably going to be decided against the top 4 drivers. They are John Force and Jerry Tolliver. Both have multinational event wins this season. The other 2 guys, they have a lot in common. Ron Capps, 4 runner-ups, no wins, and Tony Pedregon, 3 runner-ups and no wins. Only 186 points divides these 4 drivers. But the story in the funny car pits this weekend's got to be that number 10 guy on the list, Whit Bazemore. Beginning of this race, Chuck Etchells announced the parting of the ways between his crew chiefs, Tim and Kim Richards. They've been with this team 7 years, and they've tuned this team to 11 national events. Now, Tim Richards has also tuned Joe Amato to 4 Winston championships. What are these 2 going to do? Well, let's find out. Where do you go, Tim?
Well, I don't know where we go from here, but we plan to stay out here. I love drag racing, and this is where I plan to spend the rest of my time out here.
Do you have a job, Tim? Come on.
Well, maybe not. You know, you never know. Maybe we'll take a couple weeks off. You know, maybe we go to Maui. You never know.
Well, either way, their record speaks for themselves. They're a great team, and whoever gets them is going to be lucky. Over to you, Dave.
Shelley, the story in pro stock continues to be Jed Coughlin, although the 6-time national event winner in 9 events held so far this year hasn't won since early May. But check out positions 2 through 4. 47 points separate Warren Johnson, Troy Coughlin, and Ron Krischer. The bottom half of the field's even tighter with positions 5 through 10 separated by just 72 points. Bound to be some changes here in Columbus this weekend. Did you see Mark Powick sitting in 7th? Well, he lives in Bath, Ohio. It's just a 90-minute drive here. So needless to say, this is a race in his backyard, but you almost got to watch today from home.
Thank God for that last qualifying session last night, David. You know, the Summer Racing Pontiacs had a lot of steam, and we've qualified top half of the field every race to Columbus, but we snuck her in the last session in the number 9 spot.
So what has been the struggle?
Well, we just can't seem to get enough clutch in this race car. We don't know if we got a defective part going away or we're just missing the tracks better than we think, but leave it to the crew and this team, and we're going to be awesome.
So what kind of changes are you making?
We're actually going to put a whole different clutch in today. We're taking it out of Greg Anderson's car. Greg struggled this weekend, and hopefully we can take the tune-up from that car and step this whole Pontiac up this morning.
14 final events, 4 wins for Mark Powick. He will go after his 5th here in Ohio this weekend as he tries to be a model citizen. David?
Dave, our nitro racers in Top Fuel and Funny Car are trying to be model citizens themselves because the year 2000 rules calls for a penalty if they oil the racetrack down. Of course, there's a financial one, but the big one is the 10 points deducted from their Winston standings. Take a look at the current standings in Top Fuel Eliminator and compare them to how it would have been if no points had been deducted. As you will note, the order is exactly the same. Now, the totals are just a little bit different, and that could come into play when you get down towards the end of the season. But as you can see, no changes with or without the deduction in the roster in Top Fuel. In Funny Car, there's actually only one change, and that is Scotty Cannon and Del Worsham swap places because of the penalties assessed due to the oil downs. Scotty moved up to 7th. They'll move down to 8th. But other than that, the field remains just as you see with or without the deduction. We'll be coming back to Columbus, Ohio, and this, the 36th Annual Pontiac Excitement Nationals presented by Summit Racing in just a moment. Coverage of the 2000 NHRA Winston Championship is being brought to you by new Pennzoil Synthetic with Pennzaid. It's rocket science for your car. Welcome back to National Trail Raceway. Well, the sky's still sleek, gray, and cloudy, but at least the rain stopped falling. We've got lots of action as our first pair of Top Fuel dragsters in round number 2 get ready to go. And we are looking at, of course, Larry Dixon, one half of that field. Joe Amato, the other half of the pair. Here's the way they qualified. Gary Scelzi and Bob Vandergriff only 1,000th of a second apart. And Doug Herbert, the defending champion, rounded out the quick 8. The bottom half of the field, starting with number 9, David Grubnick, ending up with the Golden Greek, Chris Karamessinis, the man that dates back to the 1950s, driving a Top Fuel dragster, qualifying here in the year 2000. It was an interesting first round. Lots of things took place and some upsets, if you will, as you saw the field laid out for you. As we have the chance, take a look back at David Grubnick against the defending champ, Doug Herbert. Herbert was in the near lane. On paper, this should have been the closest race. Herbert had lots of engine problems. John Mitchell and crew celebrating David Grubnick's win at a 474. Then we saw Joe Amato, who's had lots of problems. His crew chief, Jimmy Brock, was concerned. He was against Bobby Baldwin. Baldwin had mechanical problems, but Amato ran a great 466 to advance into round 2. Bob Vandergriff Jr., the number 2 qualifier, was against Bobby Lagana Jr. Easily outdistancing the Ralph White car, Vandergriff went 465. And Kenny Bernstein and Don Lampus met up. Lampus' engine went sour right off the starting line. Kenny Bernstein did not have a picture-perfect run, a 487, but it was enough to advance him into round number 2 competition. We have got some great pairings in this second round. Our top qualifier, Gary Scelzi, will be going against the upset-minded David Grubnick. Joe Amato and Larry Dixon. What a challenge this one is. Remember, Dixon's not lost in the first round yet this year. He continued that string here. Bob Vandergriff against Kenny Bernstein and Corey Mack against Tony Schuh as we get ready for round number 2. Joe Amato and crew getting ready with a Dynamax car. His opponent is Larry Dixon. Any surprises for you, Shelley, in the first round?
Not at all. You know, Larry Dixon qualified number 5. Joe Amato qualified number 4. These two are two equally matched cars, but you know what? Joe Amato had a bad reaction time the first round. He had a .520. .400 was perfect. Larry Dixon had a great light. His car did not run really good. It only ran 298 miles an hour. Joe Amato's ran 315, so actually they're both right there.
We have talked a good bit about Joe Amato and his problems this season. Most of them manifest themselves in eliminations. That's why everybody was so happy after that first round, and Jimmy Prock particularly, because consistency is what they need, and life on the road's tough.
It's a 9-year tradition. Well, not Jimmy Prock working. That dates back more than 20 years in NHRA drag racing. But for college-bound Sam, 6-year-old Thomas, 4-year-old Austin, and wife Jill Prock, it's a chance to get the whole family together for a little summer vacation. How special are these summers?
Oh, you can't. We couldn't trade them in. We love being together. I'll tell you what, school is what wrecked it for us, because we used to be on the road all year, and since school started, now it's just the summers, and gives us a chance to really bond, you know. Kids love it.
Especially on Father's Day. Of course, they can catch up with Seth Amato, the rest of the kids out here in Dragland, and do a little bench racing of their own, Nintendo style.
Yeah, little video games in the pits help pass the time away while the folks are out playing on the racetrack.
Well, Joe Amato had top speed of the race in the first round at 315 miles an hour. Larry Dixon's been driving great. His car's got to run a little quicker.
Both cars staging. I noted on that shot from up above as Jimmy Prock watches on. Looks like Amato's car was smoking just a bit. See?
A lot of fuel coming out of the pipes. That's raw fuel.
Our Pennzoil copter cam from the folks at Pontiac Excitement just showed you Joe Amato driving away. Look at him applauding himself. 462 at 315. Maybe that monkey's off his back. David Reef.
Well, you go from a 66 to a 62. The speed's right there. It's all looking good.
Yeah, that was a good run. We wanted to step up a little bit. We had a couple things that didn't work quite right, and we're real happy with that.
Moving on.
Moving on, indeed. 462. That's what he needs. Improving times. Watch the replay.
The car in this lane, look at this, in the near lane, unbelievable. That's 2 runs in a row at over 315 miles an hour. Larry Dixon, both drivers had a great reaction time. Larry Dixon's car just didn't do exactly what they thought. It was dropping cylinders down here, losing horsepower, and Amato went around him.
There it is, just a little bit more than a car length for Joe Amato, who now advances into the semifinals. He's made it to the final round once this year. You don't think Jimmy Prock was not happy when that big win light came on? He's telling Joe what the times were. Joe, a smile on his face as well. Some great performances there between Amato and Dixon, a car length at the finish line. Down the bill.
Here's the silliest question in drag racing. Joe, got anything to say?
Yeah, I've got a lot to say. You know, second round win, that's a tough team, Dixon and the Snake over there, but Jimmy Prock and his Dynamax Valvoline Keystone Automotive team, we're back, I think. You know, the car's been running pretty good. We're just trying to be steady and go down this racetrack, and let's hope Mother Nature and Snoopy's hanging on. And it's Father's Day. My mother-in-law, Joe and Donna, home. My mother-in-law, it's their anniversary, so she told me I had to win for their anniversary. Sandy and Joe Del Balso. I'll give you right here.
There's the Amato family tree, everybody.
Yeah, right. All right. For Tony Schumacher, his dad, of course, intensely interested. Don Schumacher, the former great of the Stardust funny car fame. And his opponent here, Corey McLenithan. His dad also really heavily involved in his racing operation over the years.
Well, right now, Tony Schumacher's not in a familiar position. He does not have lane choice. Corey McLenithan does. Corey ran a great 462 in the first round for low ET of the race. Tony Schumacher only ran a 467. Both cars ran great speed. This is going to be a close race. Tony's number 3 in points. Corey's number 7.
Corey in the near lane. You're riding on board with Tony Schumacher. Corey Corey Mack with problems in the X-Side car. We have dwelt on it on every show here on ESPN Speed World. The consistency that this X-Side car, the reigning Winston champ, shows. Well, I will tell you, it has definitely paid off big time. There you see it again. 4.70, not the quickest time of the day, but he wins.
Watch the car in the near lane. It left good and about 60 foot. You see it on the left side. Put his cylinder out the whole way down. Then he had a fire, had to shut it off. Tony was running really good.
Tony with a very nice pass, and again at 315 miles an hour. Big speed numbers. That fluttering you're watching in the header flames comes as a result of our super slow motion camera. There you saw the flash of flame out of Corey Mack. We're going to be right back with more Top Fuel. Welcome back to our Pontiac Excitement Nationals presented by Summit Racing. Let's go to Bill Stevens.
Tony Schumacher, you just won your second-round matchup, and Larry Dixon lost his. You are now back in second place in the points.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. You know, it's going to go back and forth an awful lot. Selby up there, we're just trying to catch him. He's number one, and that's what you aim for. But Dan Olson, once again, for X-Side, Gates, Belts, Madco, all the wonderful people. I'll tell you what, man, it's Father's Day. So all the fathers pulling for me, happy Father's Day. For the people not pulling for me, just a bad day, huh?
That says it all.
Yes, it does. Just a bad day, huh? Here's Kenny Bernstein, the Budweiser King. You're riding on board. That camera shot right above the rear differential, just a little bit behind him, looking down over the engine. His opponent is the amazing Bob Vandergriff Jr. Why? Because he qualified number 2 and is showing that kind of consistency, not only here, but he also had it at Chicago. Kenny has a new car, and he won earlier. Not so good lately.
It was during an off-season meeting that crew chief Lee Beard handed out a couple of sheets of paper to all of the members of the Bud King crew, asking them to build the perfect dream race car. Well, the end result of that is the Bud King dragster that you see right here. The two biggest changes: this is a Brad Hadman chassis that all the big guns are running. It also has Alan Johnson cylinder heads. Regardless, all of these changes have hopefully made this car one of the top 5 contending for the championship this year. How good has the car been? It debuted in the winner's circle in Las Vegas, and since then has qualified outside the top 3 only once, the worst effort being a 6th, and that's still pretty darn good.
Well, David, we can add one to that. That is this weekend. He made it on his last qualifying effort and put himself into the number 7 qualifying position. How about Vandergriff, though?
Vandergriff's unbelievable. Consistent? Yes. He matched to the 1,000th of a second his qualifying time. That's consistent.
Well, Bernstein found the reaction time and the elapsed time he needed to win that round. 4.70 at only 300 miles an hour. But look at the time. Correction, that was for Bob Vandergriff. 4.70 for Bernstein at 3:15. Back in Amato's pit area, they are already dismantling this race car. David Reeve.
Down with Lee Beard. How you feel about those numbers?
Well, we were really nervous about this right-hand lane. You know, in the earlier rounds here, nobody was winning from this right side, and we gave it as much as we thought it would take, and got the job done.
A lot of people nervous about that right lane, but they shot right down it.
Yes, they did. Maybe it'll build a little confidence. 315-mile-an-hour speed. We saw the same numbers out of Tony Schumacher.
Boy, you saw Vandergriff. He had engine problems. You saw the flash of flame out of the back. He made a good run. That is a low-budget team. They're looking for a sponsor, and they're still out here doing a good job.
Yes, they are. As you can see, the margin of victory, some open space at the finish line. Bernstein had a nice pass. Look at this. Pulls away right down towards the end. Shelley caught it. The problems. Here they come again from another camera angle. You saw a puff there. What was that?
You saw a puff, and you saw Bob Vandergriff with a drop cylinder. You know, that's just drag racing day. They try and try, but these cars going over 300 miles an hour, that's a lot of horsepower.
So Kenny Bernstein rode the Bud King into round number 3, the semifinals. Here is your top qualifier. He is in the near lane. This is Gary Selsey. His opponent is David Grubnick. Now, Grubnick beat the defending champion in the previous round. Gary Selsey topped Chris Karamazini's up on the left-hand side of your screen. Find out what happened there in the first round. Take a look for your favorite and see how they may have fared in this very tough field, particularly considering the conditions, as we have had rain all the way through every day this weekend.
Yeah, you know, these two cars have been running good, but David Grubnick has his work cut out for him. He only ran a 4.74 the first round. Gary Selsey ran a 4.66. Gary Selsey's won the last 3 races. I mean, he's won 4 this season, and David Grubnick hasn't gotten by the second round this year yet.
As we noted at the top of the show, Gary Scelzi going for his 4th consecutive win this season. That would add him to in the top fuel ranks with 2 other drivers.
Bob Vanderbilt came into this race 10th in points. He's already 9th in points, so he's got to be happy, and he keeps wanting to move up.
A great shot from our Pontiac Excitement Copter Cam. Here's the race. Look at this. Gary Scelzi, 459 at 315 miles an hour. 476 at 300 for David Grubnick. Here's Bill.
With Kenny Bernstein, who just ran 470. Your opponent in the next round, Tony Schumacher, ran 470. Going to need a little bit more, you think?
Oh, yeah, I don't think that'll get it done. Obviously, he ran 60 in the first round, and these other cars are running in the high 50s, 60. We've got to step it up harder. But, you know, we didn't do good in Friday or Saturday until the last run, so I guess we're still tuning things up.
Well, they've got a lot more in that car. Remember, they won this race 2 years ago.
And they also learn something with every run, as it'll be Joe Amato and Gary Scelzi. Couldn't ask for a better match there in the semis. Obviously, Kenny Bernstein will be there as well, up against Tony Schumacher in the lane choice by 1,000th of a second to Kenny Bernstein. We're coming right back. Funny Cars next. We are back at National Trail Raceway. This is the 36th annual running of the Pontiac Excitement Nationals. We're in Tony Schumacher's pit area. Doesn't take them long to get back, Shelley, and to get very quickly to work. 75 minutes between rounds.
These guys make it look easy, though. These guys do it week in and week out. That is a computer. It's an onboard computer. They can look at that, plug it in. They can check the fuel pressure. They can check the blower boost right there in a handheld, take it off when they got everything set the way they want it.
Okay, take a look at what's coming up. This is Scotty Cannon and his opponent, Ron Capps. Here was the qualifying. Capps qualified in the number 3 spot at a 491. Scotty Cannon was up in the top half. Here was the bottom half of the field as they went into the first round of eliminations just a little bit earlier. And you saw it right here on ESPN Speed World. First pair of cars with Bazemore and Dean Scusa, and Bazemore losing to Scusa on a hole shot. Bazemore actually had the quicker elapsed time. The battle between John Force and Jerry Tolliver continues. This round was won by Jerry Tolliver at a fine 494, cutting Force's points lead. Ron Capps and John Lawson went at it. Lawson went up in smoke, while Ron Capps ran 4.916. The crew at McCulloch, the leader, celebrated. Then it was Scotty Cannon against Todd Payton. Our Pontiac Excitement Copter Cam showed you a great race that Scotty pulled out in the last few feet, and by 1,000th of a second picks his lane here in round number 2. Here are the pairings. Epler against Frank Pedregon. Dean Scusa will race Tony Pedregon. Tolliver against Bruce Sarver. And Ron Capps versus Scotty Cannon. They're on the line.
Well, right now they're on the line. Scotty Cannon has lane choice by 1,000th of a second. I think Capps, when Force went out, was only thinking about Tolliver. And look at that. Cannon steps up and gets lane choice over him.
Well, the lane choice, do you think it's really going to make a difference?
No, both have excellent crew chiefs. No, I don't. But you know what? It's psychological. You're happy when you got that choice.
You're putting the other guy into the underdog position whether he likes it or not. Ron Capps had a great hole shot lead. You saw him just leap ahead of Scotty Cannon. Then mechanical problems set in. Scotty's showing some consistency, though. 497 at 304 miles an hour. Here we watch it again.
Capps had a great light of .472. He was out on Scotty by 0.08 of a second, and boy, it broke. It lost an engine. Nothing Capps could do. This is racing. But look at Scotty. That was a nice run, 304 miles an hour. That team's coming around.
Well, that's back-to-back 490s for him. 491 in the previous round. Now a 497 at 304. He qualified at a 498. Here from our Pontiac Excitement Copter Cam. Boy, when that power goes away, you just stop.
Capps was so far out on him and pulling away, and something happened. He broke, and there Scotty got the win.
Scotty Cannon now into the semifinal round, and for him, That's a great appearance indeed. He's only done it once this far, twice this season. Let's go to David.
Quickly with Jimbo Ormalovich, you've got a 491, you got a 97, you got her set on kill.
Yeah, we're just trying not to step on our own feet here and shoot ourselves in the foot. We just left it alone and came back trying to run again. So we'll go back and see what happens.
How about this? The emula.com car. That is Bruce Sarver, and who is he racing? But Jerry Tolliver. You know, this is part of a two-car team, the Bruce Sarver Emula car. That's out of the Alan Johnson camp, and that's Gary Selsey's top fuel dragster. Rob Flynn serving as the crew chief on the Bruce Sarver car. And you've got to know that there's information passed back and forth between this funny car and the top fuel dragster. I'm sure they would probably call it interfacing.
Alan Johnson is the owner of one of NHRA's newest two-car teams, but it's probably not what you're thinking. Everybody knows about Gary Selsey and the top fuel car, but there's a flopper to go with the Digger as Bruce Sarver wheels the emula.com funny car for Alan Johnson, which begs the question now, Bruce, are there any similarities between these radically different race cars?
Yeah, there really is. You know, the motors are identical, the clutches, the fuel management, so they're, you know, identical. So the only difference is the body, but, you know, we're getting a lot closer with the downforce to the dragster, so we're able to run this car a lot harder than we were before. So we're getting real close to the tune-up they have over there. And when we get that real close and figured out, this thing's going to be bad.
Bruce Sarver at the last 4 races failed to qualify at 1, went out in the first round at the other 3. He has been as far as the semifinals, but that was the opening race of the season. Oh, that one was a matter of inches. The margin of victory was 31 thousandths of a second on the clocks. A 4:92 for Tolliver, Bruce Sarver at a 4:95 losing time, 304 to 302.
That was a great side-by-side race. Look at Jerry Tolliver. That's why he's number 2 in the points. That's why he's got 2 wins. He's consistent. He ran 304, 492. Sarver was right there. They really picked up. At half track, they were side-by-side. Sarver may have been a little bit ahead. But then, there went Tolliver. He drove around him.
You saw him pass him right at the finish line. Nearly identical reaction time. Oh, from this shot, you can see him kind of dicing, if you will, going down only a quarter of a mile racing surface.
That's the onboard camera for Tolliver.
Jerry Tolliver advances to the semifinals. We're coming back with more funny car action here to Columbus. We are back at Columbus, Ohio. This is the Pontiac Excitement Nationals. The skies seem to be lightening just a bit. The temperature is considerably cooler than they would have been on Friday and Saturday as the Matco Tool car lights off, ready to race against Tony Pedregon.
Tony Pedregon's got 3 runner-ups so far this season. He's only 160.8 points out of the lead. But boy, Scusa's only been by second round once this year. He's number 6 in the points, but Scusa has lane choice by 100th of a second.
They both went out in round number 2 here a year ago. Watch from our high-angle shot. Courtesy of the Pontiac Excitement Copter Cam. That gives you an idea how far Dean Scusa goes down the racetrack on his burnout. But of course, his opponent, Tony Pedregon, knows this is going to happen. They'll end up back at the starting line at just about the same time.
They do everything the same every run. They're very consistent, these guys. Everybody knows Scusa does, and they're prepared for that.
Down at the far end of the racetrack, here's our Bill Stevens.
Jerry Tolliver, your 492 beat his 495. If anything went wrong on that one, you were going home early.
Well, I'll tell you what, yeah, that was a good race. I saw him all the way, and, you know, this WWF car's going on the round, and it's a big day for the WWF, I hope. Jim's still in, and Caps went out, Forrest went out, so, hey, could be a big one. Keep our fingers crossed.
As he gets closer to taking back that points lead.
Well, there's a man that is greatly concerned about that. He's hoping that Tony Pedregon will take a win here, at least serve as a blocker to somebody. The way they are paired off, Tony Pedregon would not meet Jerry Tolliver until the final round.
Yeah.
John will take anything he can get at this point.
You know what? And John's worried about Tony, too. John wants Tony to end up number 2 in the world. Tony right now is 4th. He wants Tony to move up. He knows if he takes Scusa out, that'll be a good start.
Matco car out of the Scusa family operation. Lance Larson is crew chief, not to be underestimated by any stretch. He only qualified in the 13th spot, but certainly has proven his skills in races past.
Stepped up in the first round, has lane choice, ran 309 miles an hour. He's looking pretty strong.
Scoots ahead of 497, winning in the first round. Overpowering the racetrack was Dean at the starting line. Wasn't a picture-perfect run by any stretch for Tony Pedregon. Looked like to me he had a little flash out of it about a couple hundred feet off the starting line. But he's in the semis, 5:25. Back to David Reed.
Well, John, yesterday we had the Federal Mogul All-Stars. Today it's the Castrol All-Stars as your blocker's doing his job.
Yeah, he's doing good. And, man, that kid really, he's gutsy. He rolls deep on the staging and goes in. I just scared me to death on that staging. But he knows how to leave on a guy, and he knows that kid's good over there in that other lane. But we got a break there. She had some fire underneath her. It kept us in.
John Force, a nervous Nelly?
Oh, not John. You want to talk about a bundle of excitement? I guess so. Tony's out of the car, and the safety safari crew gathered around. That flash I thought I saw was validated by John, as there were some problems on the car.
And then Tony got it real close to the wall. He ended up lifting, but you know he did a great job, and he got the win.
You also noticed that he didn't lift until he was certain he was way out there, as Dean Scusa went up in smoke right off the starting line, checking things over, making sure they're right. Our next pair getting ready to go. This is the Kane car out of the WWF team. Teammate to Jerry Tolliver, that is Jim Epler. His opponent, part of a two-car team, the Chucker Shucks and Cragen machine of Frank Pedregon. Here's Bill.
Well, the good part's the part we all saw, the 525 win, but what was going on inside the car?
Well, not the smartest thing I've ever done. It lit up. It caught on fire about half track, and you know, it's a tough deal. It wasn't really nosing over. Maybe it pushed a head gasket out or something, but real important to get that win right now, seeing Caps, and you know, we're kind of in the hunt for the points, and just real important for Syntec and Mustang for us to get this push, especially John being out. Just a big win for us. I didn't know where Scusa was, and I just didn't want him coming around me.
He won. They'll fix it. Come back for the semis.
So Tony Pedregon did his thing. That is, of course, winning the round. Now he can continue on with possibly a shot at the finals. Our next pair sitting waiting patiently while they clear the racetrack of the Castrol Syntec machine. This is Jim Epler, your number one qualifier. He had a great 487. Frank Pedregon is his opponent. He had qualified in the number 9 spot. And for Frank, he's part of that Checker Shucks and Cragen Worsham team. We see one WWF car on the starting line. Look what's going on to the other one.
Yeah, they're getting this car ready for the next round. They're in the semis. They've got to be happy. They're getting points, and they're moving up on John Force.
Frank Pedregon in the previous round had a 5:09 winning time. Jim Epler with a 5 flat. That means the lane choice going to Epler. Right now, everybody's got their assigned task, and they're working hard.
And if Jerry Tolliver can win the next round, he will move in front of John Force for the points lead again.
Well, that's why the blocker plays such an important role in this. And, of course, Epler trying to stay in as well to block for his teammates.
Yes, because if Epler can take out Tony, if he wins this round, he'll meet Tony in the next round. But this is Frank, and you can't count him out. You saw Frank's brother just win. He drives for John Force. This is his brother, and he's a good driver.
On board with Jim Epler. This is the big red machine, the Kane car. And for Epler, rising, not necessarily. We've watched this team improve ever since it came together with 2 cars. That 487, good time.
Yeah, but he qualified number 1. That really did surprise me. He's had a win this season. He's number 5 in the points, you know. Frank's had some tough luck this year.
All right, a week or 2 weeks ago, rather, at Chicago, Frank Pedregon had his hands full. That's the car in the near lane with all the flames. Not painted on the side, but coming out from underneath. Frank got out of the car under his own power. He was A-OK, but there was heavy damage to the car. They spent a lot of time putting the body back into shape where he could actually use it. Number 9 qualifier, and Frank Pedregon now into round number 2. Here we have Frank Pedregon, the crew looking things over and just waiting the moment to lower the body down and bring him to the starting line.
They know they've got to run good. They know Jim Epler's over there. They know Dale Armstrong helps tune that car. He tunes Tolliver's, and he's a good crew chief.
You see John Stewart, the crew chief now for the Jim Epler-driven car, looking at his watch and looking intently at his opponent. What's he doing right there on the injector?
He's taking out a plug. It's bringing the idle. It takes the idle when you take a plug out, brings it up a little bit so the car will idle a little higher.
Another great view by the Pontiac Excitement Copter Cam. 497 at 294 miles an hour. Frank was close and fast as Epler seemed to be having some problems, struggling a bit. Frank had a slower elapsed time at 5:01, but went 302 miles an hour trying to catch him.
He picked up 800ths on that run. It was a great side-by-side run. Only a thousandth of a second separated these two drivers' reaction time. That's unbelievable. At half track, it was even. Look at this. And then all of a sudden, Tolliver went ahead. Frank ran 302 miles an hour. Tolliver only 294. But you know what? Tolliver got the ET.
And it looked like Jim Epler may have had some problems right in the lights. That's why he was slowing. Take a close look at this. Yeah, see the flash? Looked like a head gasket may have popped out right there at the end.
That might even been more than a head gasket. 294 miles an hour. You know that car is used to running well over 300. Epler did a good job. He got the win.
Here's what it looked like from the driver's seat. As Jim Epler advances into the semifinals, we've got more racing coming to you from Columbus. They're working hard back in the pit area. Here are the pairings. It'll be Jim Epler with Lane Choice up against Tony Pedregon. That's the car you're looking at. The opposite side of the ladder, Scotty Cannon and Jerry Tolliver. Good racing coming up. We're back with our Speed World coverage of this Pontiac Excitement Nationals presented by Summit Racing, and you are looking at what they call the Thrash. This is the WWF car, the top qualifier, Jim Epler. He is in the semifinal round. We'll be seeing that in a very short period of time, just about as long as it takes him to get it all back together and back to the starting line. We're here at National Trail Raceway getting ready to go into round number 2 of Pro Stock action. Here's your qualifying list. Warren Johnson back up at the top of the pack. Ron Krischer, winner a couple of weeks ago, is the number 2 qualifier coming into eliminations. Bruce Allen ended up number 8. And here's your bottom half of the ladder with Brad Jeter in the 16th spot. Some exciting races in round number 1. The folks from Summit Racing certainly had their hearts in their throat as they watched Mark Powick and Bruce Allen go at it. Identical elapsed times. Powick the winner, 7 flat to a 7 flat. Then everybody was watching the starting line, including starter Rick Stewart, because Tom Martino and Alan Johnson in his Dodge were in a big burn down. The count went on, and at the stroke of 5, the switch was thrown. Tom Martino was the loser. He never stayed. It was Troy Coughlin against Richie Stevens. A bit of a surprise here. Richie Stevens pulled it out with a slower elapsed time, but the reaction time of Richie Stevens, his ability to get off the starting line first, paid big dividends. Here are your pairings as we go into round number 2. It is WJ up against Mark Powick. Richie Stevens will be racing Alan Johnson, and I wonder if there's going to be a burn down there. Ron Krischer against Kurt Johnson, and Jag Coughlin against the surprising Danny Kaufman. Jake Kaufman against Danny Kaufman. Sounds too much alike, doesn't it? Danny made the final. We'll call him Danny. It makes it simple. Made the second round by virtue of a big upset over Ricky Smith. Ricky's car just getting a bit out of shape in the first round. Here we go. Round number 2 action. These cars run on gasoline versus the nitromethane you saw a little bit earlier. No superchargers, no fuel injectors. 2 giant Holley 4-barrel Dominator carburetors sit atop a 500 cubic inch engine. Here is the Dodge. Alan Johnson and his Amico Avenger against the Valspar car, the Pontiac of Richie Stevens.
Alan Johnson qualified number 12, Richie Stevens number 13, yet they're both in the second round because this racing is so close. Right now, Alan Johnson did not make a good run. We saw them red like Tom Martino. He just went down with a 14-second run. So this is really an unproven racetrack for them.
Rick Stewart, the starter, is a rather tolerant man. He will wait a given amount of time. He tries not to insert himself into the race. But when it went on as long as it did in that first round race between Tom Martino, you see he's got a stopwatch and he keeps it going. And then he starts counting. They've got a count of 5. That's why he was waving his arms a while ago. Well, they're taking their time here. Finally, Richie Stevens breaks. Alan Johnson now. He's in. And a green light. A reaction time advantage for Richie Stevens, but he could not run the number. Alan Johnson's Dodge, 698 at 196. Both of them coming from the bottom half of the field, but I'd say that was an upset, Shelley.
Definitely was. Think of this. The car in the right lane, like I said, didn't qualify, but number 12, he's in the semifinals. He's got to be happy with that. That was a great run, a 698, 196. These cars are always so close. Look at the half track. Those cones represent the half track, halfway. That's a 1,000-foot cone that they just went by, and that's the finish line.
Only 100th of a second separated them at the 8th mile. Look what separated them at the finish. Just a fraction. The Dodge had the power to drive around the starting line advantage of Richie Stevens and the Pontiac. Next pair. Number 1 qualifier, Warren Johnson. He is in the near lane. He has the lane choice, and again, like we saw in the nitro categories, lane choice seems to favor the near lane. Mark Powick driving the Summit Racing Pontiac Firebird. The Cowboy. Well, he's got a whole list of wins to his credit, but it has been a long time indeed. As for Mark Powick, he hopes to make it back into the winner's circle here in front of all of his sponsors, his hometown fans, as he from Akron, Ohio's got a huge contingent here this weekend. There's the upset of the day. Mark Powick puts away Warren Johnson, and I can tell you, you see him applauding and beating on the steering wheel. Powick is screaming inside that car. Look at this, nearly identical reaction time.
Both drivers did a great job, nearly identical. You know what? Both cars ran good. Powick got the win. Actually, Warren Johnson ran a mile an hour faster, but Powick's ET was quicker.
22 thousandths of a second, the margin of victory, just a few feet. That's Dale Armstrong, the crew chief for Jerry Tolliver. They're working. We are back at this NHRA Winston Series event, the 36th annual Pontiac Excitement Nationals, presented by Summit Racing. You're eyeballing the eyeballs of Scotty Cannon's funny car. There's lots of work going on in that pit area. And Cannon has been a bit of a surprise, a shock almost, if you will, as he's into the semifinals with some really good performances.
Second time this season, but right now we've got Jed Coughlin, number 1 in points. He's got 6 national event wins. We've only been to 9. He's in the lead by 266 points for the championship over WJ. What more can you say?
He had a whole bunch of consecutive wins going for him until his brother whipped up on him just a couple of 3 races ago in the first round.
On a huge hole shot victory for Troy Coughlin.
Danny Kaufman has to be the unknown quantity here. Up on the left-hand side of your screen, you see what happened in round 1. Why is Kaufman the unknown quantity? Rarely do you see him qualified. Seldom do you see him in round number 2. As I said earlier, he got there by Ricky Smith having problems getting loose.
But Danny Kaufman had a great reaction. Right there.
You're on board with Jake Coughlin. Got his right hand on the gear shift lever. Oops, Danny Kaufman made the mistake that everybody can fall prey to. When you know you're down on performance, what do you have to do? You have to take a shot at the tree. Well, we were hoping to bring you the two-way radio communications, but that sounded like Mars calling, didn't it? 694 at 197 miles an hour. Great performances by Jake Coughlin, as he only qualified in the number 3 spot, but then again, he's not normally a top qualifier. Ron Krischer coming up with the Eagle 1 car, and boy, did he have a big win just a couple of weeks ago.
Giant Slater and Joliet are what? You're punching out Jed Coughlin in the semifinals. He went on to face the other brother, Troy, in the finals. Punched him out, too. The number 1 qualifier goes all the way in his first ever national event final. For Ron Krischer, he's so happy he's still smoking that victory cigar. That's a good one, too, isn't it?
It's an excellent cigar. B. Gaines gave me this cigar. He won the previous race. We had an excellent race. We outran everybody starting Saturday night. We had the track down. Our crew was on top of it. We had the power. I drove well. We did everything right. We got it through before the rain. It was pretty exciting.
Exactly how he scripted it.
Well, he went through the entire litany of what you must do to win. And that makes it even more amazing when you consider the number of wins that Jake Coughlin has thus far this season. 6. As he noted, V. Gaines has won. That was Ron Krischer. And Warren Johnson has won 1 race. All the rest of them have been won by Jake.
Ron Krischer, first round, he qualified number 2 for this race. In the first round, he set top speed and low ET of the race. He drove great. I mean, the guy's really starting to look like, I mean, he is a powerhouse. I mean, he could win any race he goes to now.
You bet. 6.90, in fact, was his time in round number 1. He is facing Kurt Johnson, who defeated Jim Yates with a 6.98. Look at him. They're pulling the motor right out and getting ready to put another one in as the team clamoring over the bare chassis. The WWF cars get ready for the semis in funny car. We are in round 2 of Pro Stock. Doesn't matter to Ron Krischer who they are. They will fall if you have the performance and the driving. Krischer had 200ths of a second advantage at the starting line, 2 at the finish line. A margin by 35 thousandths of a second. Ron Krischer goes to the semis.
Low ET of second round. He had low ET of first round. He's just keeping it going.
Well, our semifinal round of Pro Stock presents us some interesting pairings indeed, as we have got some really quick cars, most particularly that of Ron Krischer. Here is the top pair. Mark Powig, who just laid away the number 1 qualifier, will go against another Johnson, Allen, no relation. And Ron Krischer, who just beat up on Kurt Johnson, challenges the hometown favorite, Jake Coughlin, the lane choice, going to Krischer. Here they are. They're working away in the Jim Epler pit. We'll be back in just a moment. We've got more great racing coming your way from National Trail Raceway. Rain, rain, stay away. Welcome back to the 36th Annual Pontiac Excitement Nationals presented by Summit Racing. We're looking down on National Trail Raceway, where you've heard the old cliche, a beehive of activity. Well, that's what's going on in the Top Fuel Funny Car and Pro Stock pits. You're with Tony Pedregon's crew as they rebuild that car, getting it ready for the semifinal round of racing. But there has been a lot of activity here in Columbus, Ohio all week long. Earlier this week, a host of racers visited Children's Hospital, and the kids were so thrilled to meet the stars of drag racing. The folks that were there included Corey McLenathan, Mark Powig, Kristen Powell, Tom Martino, Frank Pedregon, Del Worsham. They were signing autographs and saying hi to the kids. A great time was had by all, and the racers really compassionate for the problems that these children have at Children's Hospital. There is a huge crowd considering the weather on hand, and of course, there's always interest in what's coming up next, and that is NHRA Heat on the Thursday, June the 22nd. A report on the Sears Craftsman Nationals from Madison, Illinois. That's at 6:30 p.m. And by the way, that race is just 1 week away, and you'll see it right here on ESPN2 and Speed World. Shelley, you know, you've heard this cliche. If you don't like the weather, just stick around.
We're in Columbus, Ohio. We're used to that. It's rained every day. It's been hot. It's been sunny. It's been cloudy. It's been all of them.
Well, it rained here this morning, but finally it is my opinion that the long forecasted cold front has made it here. It seems to be much cooler than it's been the last 2 days.
Friday was in the high 80s. Today it's in the low 70s. This is great racing weather.
Think that's impacted our track conditions?
We've seen top speed and low ET almost every class we've seen today. Definitely has.
Well, the big shocker in Pro Stock is Mark Powig taking out the number 1 qualifier.
And in the first round, he took out the number 8 qualifier, Bruce Allen. He's having a great race, and it's his home track.
How about the consistency thus far of Joe Amato?
In the semis, first time we've seen him there in a long time.
Certainly is. Hey, there's a lot of action in the WWF pits, right, Bill Stevens?
Down here in the Jerry Tolliver pit and the Jim Epler pit. And over there, yonder, is the Jerry Tolliver car, and the pace over there is a little bit more leisurely than it is over here. The reason why, Jerry Tolliver's going into the semifinal against Scotty Cannon and really didn't have too much mechanical trouble with that automobile, so they're doing routine between round maintenance. A different story over here for Jim Epler. John Stewart, his crew chief, just told me they made a real mess of that bottom end in that last round. The crankshaft, a couple of rods, in pretty tough shape, which means that another engine is going into the car, and as you can see, everybody on the team working hard trying to get ready for their semifinal matchup with Tony Pedregon. The last time these two guys met was in the final round in Las Vegas, which Jim Epler won. Let's check in with Dave Reef.
Well, Bill, mad science meets nitromethane. Not exactly. How about Jimmo Ormilovich just loads the cannon for Scotty Cannon? And let me tell you this, the gun is firing straight, the gun is firing good. And there's a good reason for it, too. You know, Scotty has been one of the hottest drivers out here. Literally, well, now figuratively he is. He's not on fire anymore. He's going rounds. because you found the problem.
Yeah, we found the problem. We went to Atlanta and tested, and we blew the rods out of it again, so we brought it back, and we just looked over it, and we had an oiling problem. It was partially that they changed one of the parts that we had in the oiling system, and also that the thing was plumbed backwards, and it wasn't getting all the oil flow. So we turned that around, and that had been biting us all year, really. Wasn't allowing us to tune the car up, you know, to make the car go fast. So now we can get after the car a little harder, and it doesn't hurt the engine, doesn't burn the driver, and just all good things.
And when you do things like that, you can run career bests like 491 and 311 miles an hour, Bill Stevens.
Well, Dave, they're hard to work over here in the Bud King pit for Kenny Bernstein's big matchup with Tony Schumacher in the semifinal round, and crew chief Lee Beard. Stop me if I start sounding like a crew chief, but this new car, the new chassis, not really what you're noodling with. It's trying to find the right tune-up for the racetrack this weekend.
Well, during qualifying, we were going for the #1 spot both times in the first and second session there, and it smoked the tires. We were very aggressive. Third session, we said, let's just get in the show, and we ran 70 flat, which was good for the #6 spot. Now we're racing our competitors and the racetrack. It looks like the racetrack's getting very good. Selzy just ran that 59. We think we can step ours up to go at least a low 60 or maybe a high 50.
Remember, their best ET this weekend so far has been a 470, and to Dave Reef.
Well, Bill, 1989 against a guy by the name of Hank Enders. That's the last time Joe Amato won a race, the only time he's won a race here in Columbus. He has been to 3 other final events, losing in 94 to Scott, 86 to Connie Coletta, and an 84 to Gary Beck. But inside of here, this is Bob Bauer taking a look at the previous run. Jimmy Prock doing it on the computer. He's got a car that's going to go some more rounds today and hopefully break this slump, and no better place like this.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be. You know, this would be a tough round racing Gary, but we'll give it our best shot, you know.
What is it going to take to punch him out, and what kind of changes can we expect you to make to this car?
Well, we're probably not going to make too many because we got to go over to the other side, and we're a little leery of that. So we'll probably just go out and try to run and see if it's about the same, and hopefully we can get a good light and win.
We have these discussions. What is it quickly about the right lane that is troublesome?
The concrete at the 270-foot mark, the 400 or 500 feet, is just a different texture than the other side and not as good.
How about the family? Are they hanging out here?
Yeah, they're around here somewhere. The kids go in the van, so maybe they'll bring some good luck.
Good Father's Day present as well, too, Bill.
That's Kyle Powick saying, happy Father's Day, Dad. You're going to the semifinals. I love even more than I did before this weekend. Well, I don't know about that. But, hey, you've got to be happy, especially here in Ohio, where you hail from.
Well, I'll tell you, Bill, what a great way to run today. You know, we struggled through qualifying, barely got in, and this car's running faster every round. We still got some left in. I'm pretty pumped today.
You woke up WJ, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. You know, WJ's a tough competitor. Man, I owed him because he beat me by 3,000 second round at Dallas, so that was a payback.
2 weeks ago, you went out in the first round, so that win over Warren must have felt especially good.
Yeah, it sure did. You know, for Summit Racing and Pontiac and Matco Tools and all the people here from Ohio that are supporting this team, what a better way to put a performance on for my sponsor than to still be in the show today.
This guy could make a jump in the points, Mac, because earlier in the year, he was high as #3. And Mark Powick with his thumbs up. I guarantee you, if you didn't think racers have long memories, he can detail you every time somebody's beat up on him. And the paybacks, well, as you know, they are tough. We have got the semifinals when we come back. Welcome back to National Trail Raceway, the 36th annual running of the Pontiac Excitement Nationals presented by Summit Racing, and we're set to go into the semifinals of Top Fuel Eliminator. And Kenny Bernstein finally ran a time good enough to earn him lane choice, and where did he go? Into the near lane of the racetrack. That's his opponent, Tony Schumacher. Shelley, we have talked at length about Tony Schumacher's consistency, but here 1 year ago, he went out in the first round at the hands of Paul Romine. Right now, let's go down to the starting line, David Reeve.
Well, a quick update on the Bud King car, Big Mac. They went to fire that machine to put a little heat in the engine there, and suddenly the oil pressure would not come up. Lee Beard went to work and found out what the problem was. The oil pump had seized. What drives the oil pump is a magneto shaft, so they actually had to change magnetos and an oil pump, but it wasn't too much trouble. They were able to get up here in time. It'll be interesting to see if they've got their combination set just right.
Obviously, Shelley, those are parts on the external, or the outside of the engine. They're external.
Yeah, but you never like to have problems with that mag drive. That is the timing. That's what makes these cars run good. That's very serious.
We're going to have a great onboard battle here. onboard shot, if you will, because both of our cars carrying our cameras. The Bud King in the near lane, the Excite machine in the far lane. There you see it from the view. Almost identical up on the wing struts, looking down the racetrack. What are they doing from the driver's point of view at this moment? Is the driver just trying to get ready?
Driver's trying to get ready. Crew's taking the throttle stop off, making sure everything's set, putting them in the beam, and now they're ready to race.
And it is Bernstein in the near lane. Tony Schumacher in the far lane, the winner to the finals. Oh, what a race indeed. 469 for Tony Schumacher. I think that dispels a little bit of thoughts maybe about that far lane. 314 miles an hour. Tony goes to the finals. The expense of Kenny Bernstein at a 475. David Reef.
Well, Dan Olson, that right lane must not be too bad, eh?
Well, I think the racetrack's coming right around this afternoon, and it's probably a lot better than we think it is.
Of course, it's probably a lot worse, too, when the heat is up, but it is staying nice and cool this afternoon.
Yes, it is. That cold front is stuck with us and hadn't moved around. Watch this.
Unbelievable consistency in both these cars this weekend. Kenny had a problem qualifying in eliminations. He's done great. He got to the semis, but he was up against Tony. Kenny actually lost a motor, probably banged the blower, leaned the motor out, banged the blower, because you see it lose. All the flames go down in the pipes, and boom, you see that? That's the only reason Tony drove around him.
You bet, as Kenny Bernstein was making a charge right there in the last. Take a look from our Pontiac excitement copter cam. Was just in the last few feet that Tony Schumacher pulled that one out for sure.
And Tony's going to his 6th final round this season. That is an unbelievable streak.
There you saw it on our onboard camera. Kenny Bernstein in the near lane. Oh, he was skating.
Really skating around. He did a great driving job. Nothing he could do.
And the supercharger belt came off. There is Tony Schumacher. We'll be with him in just a moment. Back on the starting line, it is Gary Scelzi and Joe Amato getting ready to decide who will race this man, Tony Schumacher, in the final round of Top Fuel here at the Pontiac Excitement Nationals.
Joe Amato's only been to one final round. He hasn't had a win this season. He'd love to do it with Gary Scelzi in the other lane because Gary Scelzi's leading in the points right now.
Here you see the recap as it occurred in round number 1. Gary Scelzi and Joe Amato here now in the semifinals. Amato was over on that far side of the racetrack, but it just yielded a 469.
These are the 2 quickest winners of the second round. They're facing off right now. That's just the way it went. They both ran 315 miles an hour. Both these cars are really close right now.
That's Jimmy Prock. We're looking at him as he pulls Joe Amato into position. Alan Johnson doing the same for his driver, Gary Scelzi. Scelzi's got the points lead, trying to maintain it. Great shot, looking down with the Pontiac Excitement copter cam. That is a surprise to me. Joe Amato, 462. It was costly. You see the smoke coming out of the engine, but I guarantee you, Joe says, pocket change, huh? David Reeve.
Well, it just may be Joe Amato, Jimmy Prock stay with a 462. Get you lane choice, but as you look at the big board up there, the Winston vision screen, what are you seeing?
Well, it looks all right. You know, it looked like it wounded it down there a little bit. Or it might have been a little better than that. We lost 6 miles an hour, but we'll take it.
And take it and fix it and take it to the finals, Bill Stevens.
Tony Schumacher, now you know who you've got in the final round. Joe Amato, who just ran a 462. You're going to have enough for him? You just had a 469.
Yeah, it's a little soft. You know, we're struggling going real quick, but, you know, it's a round win. It doesn't matter how you do it. Going down the track, 4 rounds, going down the track in the 60s, that's very important. Dan Olson, once again, for the whole X-Side, Madco, Gates, Belts team, and everyone, happy Father's Day once again. I said it earlier, but this is your day, man. I'm just having fun today.
Couple of quick things now. With Gary Scelzi going out, Tony Schumacher can pick up some ground as we get up to the points race here, and also he's going to his 6th final round of the year.
Remarkable for Tony Schumacher up against Joe Amato, and Joe earning lane choice. Tony Schu losing it. I'm so surprised to say Amato is in the final round. As Shelley noted, he's only done it once. Here is one of the WWF Warriors. You are looking at Jerry Tolliver. He is up against this man, Scotty Cannon. And that's a little bit of a surprise as well, as Scotty makes it to the semifinals. We're going to be back in just a moment with this semifinal round of Funny Car. Welcome back to National Trail Raceway. We're getting set for the semifinals of Funny Car, but first down to Bill Stevens with Joe Amato.
Joe Amato, I guess the message to those other guys heading in the points is don't run off the field when there's only 2 outs.
Well, you know, you don't worry about Joe Amato. The press is worried more about Joe Amato and Team Tentacle, a lot more than we were worried about. You know, we just had to get this car to handle a bit better and go straight. And for all my sponsors out there and my mother-in-law, Joe, and Del Balzo's home, I'm just so excited about this car. You know, beating Selzy, that was great. I mean, Team Winston, he's on a roll, 3 in a row. He was going for 4. I know how to do my job up there and just get the car down there. Timmy Prock did a great job for this Dynamax Tentacle Valvoline team, and we're going to the final, and we can't say any more than that. Hopefully we'll get a Father's Day present for all the kids out there.
Back to Dave.
Well, as Joe Amato celebrates, they are working away under the canopy of the X-Side team. That is the crew for Tony Schumacher, the opponent for Joe Amato, getting the car ready to go for the final round of Top Fuel. Here we go. Semifinals, Funny Car. Scotty Cannon making his 3rd semifinal round appearance this season against Jerry Tolliver, who's now marching his way, hopefully, he thinks, into the finals and maybe regaining the points lead.
Jerry Tolliver has lane choice by 0.05 of a second. If he wins this round right now, he passes that man right there, John Force, to go into the #1 spot for the points. But Scotty moved up to the #6 spot by his 2nd round win over Ron Capps. So, I mean, points are getting tight.
Yes, they are. In the near lane is Tolliver. Something going wrong on the Scotty Cannon car. It's a hit of the throttle and low elapsed time of the entire event. 484 at 309 miles an hour. Anybody that thought the WWF team a flash in the pan, hey, forget that. Right, David?
Here's the crew chief of the new Funny Car points leader. 484. Where did that one come from?
Oh, we souped it up. We were going for it. It's been soft all day, and it's been looking soft drive shaft speed, and so we stepped it up. Hope we didn't step it up early enough to give John a warning, you know, with Tony over here, but we did.
Of course, what he's talking about is them possibly going into the bell housing area and the timers on Tony Petragon's car. The wheeling in is Joe Amato. We saw him just a moment ago talking to Bill. I tell you, they're getting them back into the pit area fast with a 75-minute rule. The crew, exactly each person knowing what he has to do to get this car ready for the next round.
Well, both the next 2 Funny Cars, both had to change motors coming into this round. Both had fires. Right now, they have new untested motors in those cars.
All right, this is Tony Pedregon. Of course, he was talking about, he being Dale Armstrong, talking about drive shaft speed. That's some of the information you gain out of the onboard recording device, the computer as it's known as. That kind of tells you what's happening with the car.
A computer can monitor all the functions you want it to. It can't perform any functions. They monitor everything. And what Dale said is when they saw that scoreboard go up with a 484, they could have put a little more mag in that car right there or in Tony Petragon's car, maybe giving him a lead that the track will take it.
Well, of course, as you heard, a number of racers and crew chiefs particularly commenting the track may be better. Dan Olson said it best. He said may be better than any of us think.
Well, Tony Petragon's been to 4 finals this year. He has no wins. Jim Eppler has a win. They both had fires, like I said. But you know what? Tony Petragon only ran a 5.25 second run. That's way off, but he had an early fire.
Here 1 year ago, both of these drivers went out in round number 2 competition. All right, let's go down to the far end. Here again is Bill.
With a very happy Jerry Tolliver. Low ET of the weekend, 484. You got the points lead back. Let's see, one more thing left to do this weekend.
Well, we'd love to win this race, but let me tell you something. That was a hot rod. That thing was running. It went to the center line. The wheel spun. I brought her back over. She spun again. I brought her back. I thought, man, this thing's a handful. That's not like John Force talking, didn't it? I'm telling you what, it was a handful. But hey, these WWF cars are going to the final. Well, this one is. Let's hope Jim gets by this and maybe an all-WWF final. I hope I didn't jinx it by saying that.
Let's see who he's going to run in the final.
That was the ride that Jerry Tolliver took. 4.84 seconds to cover that 1,320 feet of racing surface.
Don't count out Tony Petragon. He's got over there a crew chief, John Medlin. He's also got over there Bernie Federley and Austin Coyle right now. The 3 of them, the brain trust in this racing team, they can make this car a winner.
For Jim Eppler, course, there's been some changes in that camp. Jerry Manzer is gone, and now John Stewart assuming the role as crew chief, making the call on the tune-up, but he's got Dale Armstrong to rely on.
We just saw what Tolliver ran, and you know Armstrong helps his team, and they're capable of it also. This should be great side-by-side race if neither of them smokes the tires.
Tolliver looking on from the very far end of the racetrack. Up at the front, John Force watching to see if his blocker can do what he hopes for. Some problems with the Epler car, and Tony Pedregon running only a 5:08. Looked like to me that he pedaled it off the starting line, got off the throttle, then back on again as the Castrol Syntec machine comes to a slowing stop at 314-mile-an-hour pass. David?
Well, the blocker keeps doing his job, and now he's got one more round to go.
Yeah, that was really good. That can help us there in the points. That's moving Tony up ahead, catching him up with caps. The bottom line, that kid's really showing us how to drive them hot rods, pedaling all day long like he's doing.
Got to ask you about the points. How do you feel about being second again?
Well, I don't feel about nothing. I don't plan on staying here long, and right now what we're focused on is moving Tony up and trying to hurt them WWF boys. But I'm real proud of that kid. He's really maturing as a driver. He's excellent.
John Force says, game on, Jerry Tolliver.
Well, I called that one right, Shelley. He's off the throttle.
He did that in the last run. He gets on it, gets back on it. He had to do it twice on that run. That was unbelievable. But you know what? Tony's been a great driver for so long. The car in the near lane, Jim Epler, something went wrong. He lost power, but you know what? Tony did a great job of driving.
A lot of raw fuel coming out of Epler's car. Probably the supercharger drive belt, just a guess, if you will. What a ride here with the WWF. And it slows radically.
Boy, Tony went right by it, but you know what? They have another run. They haven't gotten real good runs the last two runs, Tony Pedregon, but he can step it up in the final.
All right, here's Bill down with Tony.
Tony, last couple of runs have not been beautiful things, and now you're headed to the final against Jerry Tolliver, who just went 484.
Well, it's not exactly the way we want to do it on the performance end, but the important part is we're here. Tough track out there. The car's wanting to make some power, and it got loose, and I had to pedal it twice because it hiked the front end up, but it's running 5 flat at 314. 314 means it's making a lot of power. We just need to figure out how to get it stuck, and we got one round to do it. So
one more to go, Mac.
One more, and he's facing an opponent that just set low elapsed time of the weekend. That 484 by Jerry Tolliver earns him lane choice over Tony Pedregon. The final and funny car coming up in a moment. They're working away in the pits, getting Joe Amato's car ready. Stay with us. Remember a few moments ago you saw Joe Amato's car pulling into the pit area? Well, they're already installing the new engine. Most of the nitro teams have gone to this procedure with the 75-minute rule. They have a spare engine just sitting there ready to bolt it in. It's Joe Amato in the final round against Tony Schumacher. Here we go. Pro Stock semifinal round, and the cool weather certainly has to benefit the likes of Mark Powick and Alan Johnson.
Definitely. You know, we've seen low ET and top speed today in this class. Also, this is Alan Johnson's first trip to the semis this season. He won last year. He hasn't been to a final round yet Mark Powick has a runner-up. This is Mark Powick's home track. His sponsors, he's got to be happy.
Certainly does. Got his whole family here and a whole rooting section for him as well. That is the Summit car on the far side of the racetrack. The near lane, Alan Johnson, the Amoco Dodge Avenger.
Talk about taking out some tough players. Mark Powick took out WJ in the second round, Bruce Allen in the first round, and Alan Johnson took out Richie Stevens and Tom Martino.
Wins at a 695 to a 697. There's the folks from Summit cheering him on. 197 miles an hour. Alan Johnson trailing by only 5 thousandths of a second at the finish line. Close race.
Really close race. Both drivers had a good reaction time, but Alan Johnson left on Mark Powick, so Mark Powick had to play catch-up. At half track, look at him. 446 to a 447, only a hundredth of a second difference, but at the finish line, 5 thousandths of a second. That's why we like Pro Stock racing.
Look at this. In stop action, just a few inches, giving Mark Powick his first final round appearance since earlier this season. Oh, it was close all the way down. That great Pontiac Excitement copter cam shot shows you the dicing that goes on in just a quarter of a mile race.
And Mark Powick's Pontiac is in the final.
Yes, it is. A fine showing by Alan Johnson and the Dodge. Here is a hometown hero for sure. This is Jake Coughlin. He was runner-up here to Warren Johnson 1 year ago. If he wins this race against Ron Krischer, it will be Coughlin going into the second final round in a row right here at Columbus. But Krischer is a formidable opponent, Shelley.
Krischer qualified number 1 at the last race. He won the last race. He's got top speed and low ET of this race. And you know what? Jaggy's in an unfamiliar position. He's the underdog. Right now, Krischer has lane choice by 0.02 of a second. He's got him on speed. I mean, this is Ron Krischer's race. It's Jaggy's to try and beat him.
Was an intergalactic reaction time, if you want to call it that. 4-1-2. Remember, .400 is perfect. That's what Ron Krischer strapped on Jake Coughlin, plus a 691 to a 695. It is Krischer going to a second final round in a row.
Krischer had 4 great reaction times at the last race to win it. In the last round, he had a .424. Live by the light. Sometimes you die by that light, Mac.
You bet, but right now, Krischer is on his game. He earned lane choice with that 691. Mark Powick, his opponent in the final round. Back in the pits, they're taking the tires off. Everything gets examined between rounds. We're going to be back in just a moment with more semifinal action. We're back at Columbus, Ohio, and the National Trail Raceway hosting for the 36th year, the annual Pontiac Excitement Nationals presented by Summit Racing. David Schultz in the near lane, Tony Mullen in the far lane. This is Pro Stock Motorcycle. We are in the semifinal round, and Tony Mullen, from his #1 qualifying spot, just has waded his way through the field. Clarence Markham and Sean Gann feeling the sting. Just the previous round to go.
But Dave Schultz has lane choice by 0.02 of a second. He's number 3 in the points. Tony Mullen's number 4 in the points. Right now, this is what these people are thinking about. They want the win, but they want the points.
Reggie Showers was in the first round as well, but Schultz beat Brian Ayers in the first round and Gino Scali in the second to earn his position here with this brand new Suzuki Hayabusa. It's in the near lane. Easily outdistancing David Schultz. Tony Mullen, you saw the pump of the arm by Harry Lartigue, his tuner. That's part of that stealth racing team of Troy Vincent, 731 at 182 miles an hour. Mike's loving this cool weather.
You know, this is his third final this season. He's only got 2 runner-ups. Be nice to see him get a win.
We talked about that 731 being a good time. This young lady, Angel Sealing, ran a 724 in the second round when she beat Matt Hines, the reigning Winston champ. That's a new track record.
Unbelievable run. I don't know where that came from, but you know what? She qualified number 3. She's racing Antron Brown. He qualified number 2. She's leading in the points right now. She's got 2 wins and a runner-up, and that 724 is looking strong.
That was matched by a 728 in the first round, which at that point was a new track record as well. Her opponent is Antron Brown. Don't count him out. He beat Craig Treble in the second round and took care of Rob Short in the first round, but he's been way off pace performance-wise.
But he won the last race.
Precision staging. You can't let those bikes roll on you. Angel just driving away. 723 to a 733, 181 miles an hour to Antron's even faster, 182. But look at those reaction times. 418 for Antron Brown. He tried everything he could, but just could not outperform the Team Winston motorcycle.
That was a great round win. She's in the final for the 4th time this season. We've only been to 5 races, so that's not bad.
Not bad at all. That's why she's got the Winston points lead. We keep talking about the consistency. You got to go rounds. You got to earn those points. There's your final round pairing. Angel Sealing at a 723, having lane choice over Tony Mullen. Again, back into the WWF pit area. There you see Dale Armstrong, the crew chief, directing the operation as they prepare Jerry Tolliver's car for the finals. We're coming back. Welcome back to National Trail Raceway. We're in the pit area. They're getting ready for the finals of this, the Pontiac Excitement Nationals. It's been quite a race indeed. Jerry Tolliver goes into the finals of Funny Car with a substantial elapsed time advantage, 4.84 seconds in that semifinal round. But Shelley, he's done this before.
We saw it 2 weeks ago in Chicago. He went in with 11/100ths of a lead. He gave it up to Force. Force stepped up, and Tolliver didn't.
How about this pro stock battle? It's an all-Ohio field. Ron Krischer against Mark Powick.
Ron Krischer would like to make it 2 in a row, but you know what? Mark Powick, his sponsors race, his family's here. That'd be a great story.
How about the weather? That's been the big story all weekend long. A giant thunderstorm here Friday night. We have been under clouds all day long. The rain stopped, about mid-morning, and a tribute to the NHRA Safety Safari to get this track in shape and to the racers to get ready to go racing. Down in the pit area, what's happening with you, David Reeve?
Well, Big Mac, I love coming down here because you learn something new all the time. This is space grease, actual space technology here that they use to apply to hot parts. John Medlin's been over here putting that on the inside of the rotors, using that to cool off this part of the cars. The rest of the crew, it's a myriad of activity, as you can well imagine. The good news is there are no broken parts over here. The bad news is they're going up against a pretty stout competitor, and their best 5:08 going into the finals. What are they going to do about it? Well, let's step into the technology center here and get a chance to talk to John Medlin to find out exactly what they are going to do as he looks at the computer. First of all, what are we looking at here? This is the last run.
Yes, sir. What happened, we had to pedal it there twice, and we're trying to figure out how to keep it from shaking right in this area right here.
So that is the next question then. What do you do? Because that's a pretty monumental number that you're going up against here in the final.
Yeah, we're going to have to get a control of it. We're changing the event of the rim and the tire either a little too early or a little too late. And we're going to think about that a little while and pick which one to choose.
If I knew what he just told me, Bill Stevens, I would understand, but clearly I don't.
All right, there may be a little quiz later, so take copious notes. Over here at the Jerry Tolliver pit, well, not so much computer power, but brain power. See if you can follow this now, okay? Jerry Tolliver ran that 484 in that last round. That's low ET of the weekend. Now, you would think that the crew chief would leave the car alone for the final round. Hey, 484, Tony Pedregon would really have to run the best run of his entire career to beat that. Well, it's not that easy. That 484 had that engine on the ragged edge. In fact, crew chief Dale Armstrong said they fried some pistons because they had that motor hopped up so much. He doesn't know what to do. If he leaves it alone, he may blow it up or smoke the tires. If he softens it up too much, Tony could pull a rabbit out of his hat and outpower Jerry Tolliver in the final round. Back to you.
Well, Bill, with a 462, Joe Amato finds himself in his second final of the year. This is the bullet that smoked there in the semifinals. What caused the problem? Well, I asked Jimmy Prock. He said, I don't know anything about that right now. Ask me on Monday. That's what these 75-minute turnarounds do to this team. But they've dropped a new bullet in as they go in search of their 51st, Joe Amato's 51st career national event win, and first this year. It's something that a lot of people have been expecting all season long. Donna Amato's been living with this guy all season long as the expectations continue to grow and the pressure continues to grow. What's it been like to live with this guy?
It's been crazy. That's an absolute emotional roller coaster. I mean, when they're doing well, he's up, and when they're doing bad, he lays awake at night just trying to figure out what went wrong, if he did something wrong, and it's tough.
And hopefully that'll be all over today as Joe Amato can maybe punch out Tony Schumacher. He's 0-2 against him this year, Bill.
Dave, there are three stories over here in the Tony Schumacher pit. First of all, the points race. Tony's already moved back into second place in the points. Gary Selzy's been gone for a couple of rounds. He could pick up 20 more points if he wins this final against Joe Amato. Story number two, always with this car, consistency. In eliminations, a 467, a 470, a 469 in the top speeds, 315, 315, 314. This is a Xerox machine, not a race car, but right in there, that could be the key to victory. Crew Chief Dan Olson says they're working on their clutch program. They're making more adjustments underneath that bell housing, and if they get it right, they'll get the win later on against Big Joe. Back to the booth.
What a great treat for all of us, an opportunity to take a look inside that clutch can. Rarely do you have the opportunity to see that all-important clutch because it absorbs the excess horsepower. We now know who the finalists are, Joe Amato and Tony Schumacher. Let's take a look back and see how they got there and what happened in round number one. Gary Scelzi, of course, was the top qualifier. Joe Amato qualified 4th. He beat Baldwin in the first round, Larry Dixon in the second.
There weren't really many upsets. Only one top qualifier got beat. That was Doug Herbert. The rest were expected to win.
All right, you see Tony Schumacher taking out Rhonda Hartman-Smith, and then Corey Mack in round 2. Here's the semifinals.
Boy, look at Gary Scelzi. I couldn't believe it. He got upset because he smoked the tires instantly.
And Tony Schumacher, as Bill pointed out, has been the picture of consistency that carried him to that Winston title a year ago. Who knows what's going to happen with the rest of 2000 to go. Here's Funny Car. Well, we have got Jim Epler out already. And Tony Pedregon, though, he's staying in. He beat Corey Lee the first round, Dean Scusa the second round.
We've got one Tolliver car left, one Force car left. They're both in the final. It's going to be a great race.
As you can see, Jerry Tolliver took out John Force in the first round. That was one of the big upsets, even though Tolliver was the quicker qualified of the 2 cars. In Pro Stock Eliminator, as we noted earlier, it is an all-Ohio final. Mark Powick beating Bruce Allen, then Warren Johnson in the second round. He's got to be thrilled just with that accomplishment.
But look at Ron Krischer. Ron Krischer has done such a good job 2 races in a row. He's driving excellent. He's had great reaction times and great ETs, and he's also in the final, and he's got lane choice.
Krischer has the performance advantage going over Mark Powick when we return to see the final rounds. That's what's coming up next from right here in Columbus, Ohio. Stay with us. We're at National Trail Raceway. Welcome back to National Trail Raceway. It is time for the final rounds of the NHRA Pontiac Excitement Nationals presented by Summit Racing. There is one family that is definitely interested in the outcome of the Pro Stock race. That is Cassandra and Kyle Powick, Mark Powick's children. But before we get there, let's take a look at the final round of Pro Stock Motorcycle. Angel Seeling has been absolutely superlative. Her opponent in the final round is Tony Mullen. This is somewhat of a toss-up, except for the extremely good elapsed time by Angel Seeling.
Her bike's really running good, but Tony Mullen qualified number 1. He ran a 7:31 in the last round. He's got to pick up about 0.08 of a second, but you know what? He's number 4 in the points. He's capable. He's got 2 runner-ups already this season.
Throughout the entire 3 rounds, previous rounds of elimination, Angel Seeling has set a new track record for Pro Stock motorcycles on every pass. 7:28 the first round. In the second round, a 7:24, and then just a few moments ago in the semifinal, she ran 7:23.
Tony Mullen has Freedom Motorsports horsepower, though. That's Byron Hines engines, Byron Hines power on that bike, so you can't count him out.
Of course, the tuning wizardry of George Bryce is there with that Team Winston bike. She is in the near lane. That's been the lane of choice all day long for the quicker qualified racer. That's George with the 2-way radio communication link between himself and Angel. He can kind of direct her without having to go through hand signals and such. Lots of racers using that technique nowadays. Staging oh so carefully. You don't want to let the motorcycle roll. Our reaction timer, the green light will come on in the lane for whoever leaves first. Tony Mullen had the advantage, but look at the power. Angel Seeling goes even quicker. The cool weather working to her benefit. 7:18, just 0.03 of a second off the national record. 7:19 at 182 miles an hour. Tony Mullen improved to a 7:28.
Great side-by-side race. I mean, Tony Mullen had the advantage off the starting line. Both bikes working good at half-track. They were pretty close. Angel a little ahead. Tony Mullen actually went faster on that run. 183 miles an hour means he's got the horsepower. They just got to apply it better.
Well, the cool front has stayed with us all day long, and the rain stayed away. And look at Angel Seeling, just outpowering, even with the starting line advantage that Tony Mullen had. His crew knew it. Harry Lartigue in the group, but he could not make it pay off as Angel right down the center of the lane. Phil Stevens?
Angel Seeling clearly overcome with emotion after that victory. Angel, what a great day. A perfect end to really just a tremendous way to end this day with the performance you had today.
I'm so excited because the guys back at the Star Race just showed the world what they can do. I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of them.
She's happy. Happy is hardly the word for it. Those are tears of joy, folks, as Angel Seeling your Pro Stock Motorcycle champion. The cars, they're next. This is National Trail Raceway and its finals time of the 36th Annual Pontiac Excitement Nationals. Next pair, they're on the starting line. This is Mark the Cowboy Powick and the wheel of the Summit racing car up against Ron Krischer. Now the story here is in reality and reaction time. Krischer has about a 300th of a second advantage, averaged over the previous 3 runs over Powick. Powick's been in the mid-450s throughout the entire day. Remember, 400 is perfect. Well, Krischer's been down as low as a 416, sitting in the 420 zone.
Look, there is Powick's family. Those are his 2 kids. It's Father's Day. That's got to be a great feeling. But you know something? What's unbelievable is Powick only got in on the last qualifying spot. He qualified number 9. He's taken out all the big hitters. He's in the final. It's his home track, his sponsor's race. And you know what? Pontiac right here, it's their race, and both these cars are Pontiacs.
Yeah, but Krischer's coming off that big win just 2 weeks ago up in Chicago. He was superlative. They're qualified number 1 at a 686. Maybe they can use this cooler air. Obviously, the track's good. You saw the time by Angel Seeling on that run in Pro Stock Motorcycle. These also are gasoline-burning cars.
Another thing you got to look at is Krischer's reaction time. In the last race, he was perfect here. He's had a 412 in the last run. He had a 4.25 the run before that, and a 4.39.
Reaction time played the role, but it went to the opposite side. Mark Powick pulls off the upset from the number 9 qualifying spot. He rose to the occasion, .420. Look at him inside the car. I'll bet there isn't a piece of aluminum in there that is not dented from Mark Powick beating on it. David Reeve.
Let's get a chance to talk to Rob Downing. Unbelievable the way this event came out, especially going into that last qualifying round.
I can't believe it. For Summit and for Pontiac, we're so happy. This is the best the cars ran all weekend. Things just finally came together for us. We had a rough start this weekend, and like I said, couldn't be a better time.
Go down and celebrate the Cowboys' first win since 1995, Bill Stevens.
Mark Powick is getting out of his Summit Firebird, and he's going to be all arms and elbows right here as he has won his first national event in Pro Stock since, and if I'm not mistaken, Memphis 1995?
Boy, what a way to break that string, Bill. At our home track, Pontiac, Summit, Matco Tools, all my Ohio fans. Woo!
He has waited a long time for this day.
He certainly has, and it was reaction time. He had 75 thousandths of a second head start over Ron Krischer, and that's a shock to me because Krischer had really been driving good.
Both cars left good. You know, Ron Krischer's car was actually quicker than the 60-foot, but started skating around. That's when Powick took off, kept the lead, and you know what? Powick's reaction time of 420. He did his best reaction time in the final round when he needed it.
He did, and look at the margin of victory. It was huge. More than a car length. There was daylight between the 2.
Ron Krischer had his worst reaction time of 4.95.
We've got nitro action when we come back. Look at the reaction of the family. We're here at Columbus. Stay with us. A moment ago, I promised you nitromethane racing, and that's just what's coming up here at the Pontiac Excitement Nationals. You're looking at Jerry Tolliver. You're riding with him. The final of Funny Car Eliminator. His opponent is Tony Pedregon. You say, why does John Force run a 2-car team? For this very reason. To give an opportunity, should he falter, which he did in round number 1 against Jerry Tolliver, to let his teammate, and look at Force. If you could cheer a man on, he would be inside the car, booting on Tony Pedregon, because that's his teammate, and he hopes he can beat Tolliver.
I think the story, though, is what this car ran. Jerry Tolliver in the semifinals. It ran a 4.84 second run, low ET by 900ths to a 10th. Unbelievable. Dale Armstrong's doing a good job.
Tony Pedregon's been troubled the last couple of runs. In round number 2, he had the fire, had the engine problems. 508 in the previous round, in the semifinals, when he had to get on and off the throttle because the car was shaking and he was trying to stop it. He did get the win when Jim Epler had bigger problems.
Tony Pedregon's been to 3 final rounds. He's got 3 runner-ups. He'd like to get a win for his boss right now, and there's Austin Quayle, the crew chief for John Force, helping John Medlin out now that Force went out.
don't think they've applied every trick they know to get this car to perform. The Castrol Syntec Mustang, that is John Medlin, the crew chief for Tony Pedregon, trying to stop Jerry Tolliver, who moved back into the Winston points lead.
We know Tony Pedregon's a good lever. Jerry Tolliver's on and off again.
Couldn't ask for it closer, and it was a tremendous run. When you see the times, look at this. 487 to a 489. Tolliver had the quickest time. David Reef.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a gaggle of people down here. John Force kicking his hat. He's darn happy. Somewhere in the middle of this melee, it's John Medlin. Unbelievable. You saved your best for last year's. I tell you, I counted no fewer than 18 shirts down here. I'm even going to give myself a hug. John, quickly, man, we got to talk. How did you do it, man? You saved your best for the last. You saved your best for last.
I'll tell you what, that was quite a deal. That thing was hanging in there all the time. My son Eric here is with me. It's the best Father's Day a guy could have.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Down to the far end with a happy winner. Here's Bill Stevens.
Tony Pedregon wins his first race of year 2000 on a hole shot against the guy that could have been 31 points ahead of your boss. He's only 11 ahead.
I think we all know that I owed him that one. And best Father's Day I've ever had. I want to say hi to my baby Sass. I've been thinking about her all weekend. Ironically, it is my first Father's Day, but this Syntec team, very persistent. That's what won the race. Castrol Ford, good day for us.
We'll be back. Coming back in just a moment for the Top Fuel final. Tony Pedregon, by 16 thousandths of a second, wins it. If our finalists in Top Fuel Eliminator can match the excitement that we just saw in the funny car final, I don't know whether my old heart's going to take it, Shelley.
Well, Joe Amato's got to be happy. You know, he got by the first round. Now he's in the final. He's been there already this year, but he hasn't won, and he's looking for it. Tony, on the other hand, has one win. He's got 3 runner-ups, and he'd like to take a second win.
Joe Amato in the near lane, and there is Tony Schumacher trying to march back up into the Winston points lead. You are on board as Dan Olson, the crew chief, performs the final tune-up, if you will, to that engine. It is a 500 cubic inch maximum displacement engine running through a supercharger and fuel injection, and 500 cubic inches makes somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 horsepower.
Right here, these drivers are really concentrating. This is for a lot of points, and you know what? They want the win.
Joe Amato's car, I would guess, went into tire shake. The parachute came out at half track, and Tony Schumacher's consistency continues. 464 at 316. Tony Schumacher, the winner. David Reef.
Well, down with Dan Olson and Don Schumacher. Yeah, this is a very, very happy team. We'll get a chance to talk. Don, could you have gotten a better Father's Day present?
That's the best Father's Day present I've had in a lot of years. I got all my kids here with me. I love it. Thank you, Exide, Matco Tools. I mean, this is a great experience for us. Gate Belts. I mean, we need all these people supporting us. Dan and Tony and this crew has done a phenomenal job.
Mr. Schumacher, your son did a great job. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you very much.
Bill Stevens?
Tony, a 464, your best run of eliminations, and you've really tightened up the points again.
Yeah, we needed that. Hey, Pontiac Excitement Nationals, Columbus, been a good track to us. And Dan and the whole Exide team, Gates, Belts, Madco, on Father's Day, like I said earlier, for all of my fans on Father's Day, happy Father's Day. And for everybody else, man, I'm sorry, maybe next Father's Day.
The Pontiac Excitement Nationals.
Boy, there was plenty of that. There is no question at all. Our congratulations to all of the winners. You see them there. For Bill, Dave, and Shelley, I'm Dave McClellan. On behalf of all of us, happy Father's Day, particularly my dad.